Imagine turning down a rich, handsome guy because you think he's arrogant, only to slowly realize that maybe you were completely wrong about him. That's basically the story of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It's one of the most famous novels ever written, and while it might seem like just another romance, it's actually packed with social commentary, family drama, misunderstandings, and some surprisingly sharp humor. So whether you're studying for a test, reading the book for class, or just wanted to understand why people are still obsessed with Mr. Darcy over 200 years later, here's Pride and Prejudice, explained in under 10 minutes. The story takes place in early 19th century England. At this time, marriage wasn't just about love. For many women, marriage was about financial security. Women generally couldn't inherit family estates, own much property, or easily support themselves. This is important because the Bennet family has 5 daughters: Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, and Lydia. Their father owns an estate called Longbourn. The problem? Because of inheritance laws, none of the daughters can inherit it. When Mr. Bennet dies, the estate will go to a distant relative named Mr. Collins. So Mrs. Bennet has one major goal in life: get her daughters married, and preferably to wealthy men, and as soon as possible. One day, a wealthy young gentleman named Mr. Bingley moves into a nearby estate called Netherfield. Naturally, Mrs. Bennet is thrilled. Bingley is rich, unmarried, and young. To her, he's basically the jackpot. At a local ball, Bingley immediately becomes interested in the eldest Bennet daughter, Jane. Jane is beautiful, kind, and well-liked. But Bingley doesn't arrive alone. He brings his friend, Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy. Darcy is even wealthier than Bingley. In today's money, he'd basically be billionaire-level rich. But there's a problem. Darcy comes across as proud, cold, and unfriendly. Things get worse when Elizabeth Bennet overhears him saying that he believes she's tolerable, but not attractive enough to tempt him. Ouch. Not exactly a great first impression. From that moment on, Elizabeth strongly dislikes him. Meanwhile, Jane and Bingley clearly like each other, but several people around them aren't happy about it. Darcy believes Jane doesn't seem deeply attached to Bingley, and Bingley's sisters also look down on the Bennets because they aren't as wealthy or socially connected. Together, they convince Bingley to leave for London. Without even proposing, Jane is heartbroken, and Elizabeth ends up blaming Darcy. While all of this is happening, Mr. Collins arrives. Remember him? He's the relative who will inherit Longbourn. Mr. Collins is awkward, pompous, and constantly praises his wealthy patron, Lady Catherine de Bourgh. He decides he wants to marry one of the Bennet daughters. At first, he chooses Elizabeth. He proposes, and Elizabeth immediately rejects him. What's funny is that Mr. Collins literally cannot understand that she's serious. He assumes she's just playing hard to get. Eventually, he accepts the rejection and quickly proposes to Elizabeth's friend, Charlotte Lucas, instead. Charlotte ends up accepting, not because she's in love with him, but because she wants financial stability. This shows one of Austen's major points about marriage in her society. Elizabeth then meets a charming army officer named George Wickham. Wickham tells Elizabeth a shocking story. According to him, Darcy treated him terribly and cheated him out of money and opportunities. Since Elizabeth already dislikes Darcy, she's pretty eager to believe it. This is where the novel's title becomes important. Elizabeth develops prejudice against Darcy. She thinks she knows exactly what kind of person he is, but she's missing a lot of information. Eventually, Elizabeth visits Charlotte and Mr. Collins. While there, she encounters Darcy again. To her surprise, Darcy proposes marriage. But this is not a smooth proposal. Darcy basically says, "I love you, despite your inferior family and social status." Not exactly romantic. Elizabeth rejects him immediately. She accuses him of separating Jane and Bingley and ruining Wickham's life. Darcy leaves, but the next day he gives Elizabeth a letter, and this changes everything. In the letter, Darcy explains his side of the story. First, he admits that he helped separate Jane and Bingley, but he genuinely believed Jane didn't love Bingley. Second, he reveals the truth about Wickham. Wickham isn't a victim, he's a liar. Darcy explains that Wickham squandered money that had been given to him and even tried to elope with Darcy's young sister, Georgiana, mainly for her fortune. Suddenly, Elizabeth realizes she may have completely misjudged both men. This is one of the most important turning points in the novel. Elizabeth begins questioning her own assumptions. Later, Elizabeth visits Darcy's estate, Pemberley. She expects to learn more reasons to dislike him. Instead, she hears servants and neighbors praising his kindness and generosity. Then Darcy unexpectedly arrives. But now he behaves completely differently. He's polite and friendly and respectful. He even goes out of his way to welcome Elizabeth and her relatives. Elizabeth slowly realizes that Darcy has genuinely changed. Or perhaps she never understood him correctly in the first place. Then, disaster strikes. Elizabeth's youngest sister, Lydia, runs away with Wickham. This is a huge scandal. At the time, an unmarried woman running off with a man could destroy the reputation of her entire family. The Bennets fear that Lydia and Wickham haven't actually gotten married. If that happens, all 5 sisters could become social outcasts. Eventually, Lydia returns. Married. Everyone assumes Wickham suddenly became responsible, but that's not what happened. Elizabeth discovers that Darcy secretly tracked down Wickham, paid his debts, and arranged the marriage. He did it without seeking credit or praise. This finally proves the true nature of his character. At the end of the novel, Bingley returns and proposes to Jane. She accepts. Soon afterward, Darcy proposes to Elizabeth a second time. This time, everything is different. Both of them have grown. Darcy has become more humble. Elizabeth has learned not to judge people too quickly. She accepts. The novel ends with both couples happily married. Meanwhile, Lydia and Wickham's marriage remains troubled because it was based more on impulse than genuine respect or love. So what is Pride and Prejudice really about? The most obvious theme is right there in the title. Darcy's pride causes him to appear arrogant and look down on others. Elizabeth's prejudice causes her to form conclusions before knowing the full truth. Both characters must overcome these flaws before they can find happiness. Another major theme is marriage. Austen shows several different types of marriages throughout the novel. Jane and Bingley represent affection and compatibility. Charlotte and Mr. Collins represent financial practicality. Lydia and Wickham represent impulsive attraction. Elizabeth and Darcy ultimately represent a balance of love, respect, and understanding. The novel also explores class and social status. Many characters judge others based on wealth, family connections, or rank. Austen questions whether these things actually reveals someone's true worth. And perhaps the biggest lesson of all of this is first impressions can be wrong. People are often more complicated than they seem. And that's Pride and Prejudice, explained in under 10 minutes. If the summary helped you understand the story, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more classic novels, famous books, and school topics explained quickly and clearly. And if there's another book you'd like to be covered next, leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.